Guadalcanal, October 24, 1942. 21:30 hours. Captain Toshio Kamada of the Imperial Japanese Army's 2nd Division peered through the oppressive darkness toward the marine perimeter defending Henderson Field. The humid air hung heavy with the scent of rotting vegetation and cordite from earlier engagements. His men moved silently through the kunai grass, each soldier a shadow among shadows, their movements honed by years of training that emphasized stealth and the decisive bayonet charge. Kamada calculated the range to the American positions at approximately 600 meters. According to doctrine drilled into every Japanese officer at the infantry school, this was still too far for decisive combat. They needed to close to under 300 meters, where Japanese fighting spirit and cold steel would overwhelm the Americans. His battalion had succeeded with these tactics in China, in Malaya, in the Philippines. Tonight would be no different. The night erupted without warning. Sustained mechanical hammering split the darkness as sheets of red tracers streamed across the kunai grass toward his advancing infantry. The sound was unlike anything in Japanese military experience, not the measured tap-tap-tap of a Nambu machine gun or the brief bursts of rifle fire, but a continuous roar that seemed to come from everywhere at once. His sergeant, standing barely 2 meters away, suddenly jerked backward. Kamada watched in horror as crimson spray painted the grass behind the man, multiple .30 caliber rounds from an American automatic rifle having torn through his chest in the space of a heartbeat. The sergeant's mouth opened in a silent scream before he crumpled to the ground, his Type 38 rifle falling uselessly beside him. The devastating fire continued for nearly 20 seconds, an eternity in combat. Vegetation shredded under the onslaught, tree branches splintered and fell, and the very air seemed to vibrate with lethal energy. Kamada pressed himself into the mud, feeling the earth shake as rounds impacted around him. More of his men fell under the relentless barrage, their screams lost in the mechanical thunder. No single rifle could maintain such volume of fire. No machine gun could be deployed so quickly or from so many positions simultaneously. Kamada's mind raced, trying to comprehend what weapons the Americans possessed that could deliver such devastating firepower from beyond effective rifle range. 700 yards away, Marine Corporal Robert Fowler of the 1st Battalion, 7th Marines maintained his position behind his M1918A2 Browning Automatic Rifle. The 20-pound weapon rested on its bipod, the shoulder stock pressed firmly against his shoulder as he sent controlled bursts down range. He had spotted the Japanese movement through gaps in the vegetation, dark shapes moving against darker backgrounds, betrayed by the occasional glint of moonlight on metal. Fowler's bar spoke with authority, each burst carefully aimed and devastatingly effective. The 20-round magazine emptied in seconds, but Fowler had practiced the reload thousands of times. Magazine out, new magazine in, bolt forward, and the weapon was ready again. The entire process took less than 3 seconds, barely a pause in the storm of lead sweeping the Japanese positions. Around him, other Marines with BARs joined the firefight. The distinctive sound of multiple automatic rifles created an impenetrable wall of fire that no amount of courage could overcome. This was not warfare as the Japanese understood it. This was industrial slaughter delivered with American efficiency. The Japanese military had entered the Pacific War supremely confident in their infantry tactics and the superiority of the Japanese soldier. Years of successful campaigns had validated their approach to warfare, an approach that emphasized spiritual strength over material advantage, the warrior's determination over technological dependency. At the Imperial Japanese Army Infantry School in Chiba, officer candidates learned the principles that had guided Japanese military thinking since the Meiji Restoration. Combat was ultimately decided at close quarters, where the superior morale and training of Japanese soldiers would overwhelm enemies who relied too heavily on firepower. The emphasis was on infiltration, night attacks, and the final devastating bayonet charge that would shatter enemy lines. Training emphasized decisive combat at ranges under 300 meters, with particular focus on the final 100 meters, where cold steel and warrior spirit would prevail. Marksmanship was important, but subordinate to the aggressive spirit that would carry soldiers through enemy fire to close combat range. The Type 38 rifle, with its long barrel and excellent bayonet, was perfectly suited to this doctrine, accurate for aimed fire, superb as a spear in the final assault. Standard squad doctrine built around the Type 96 and Type 99 light machine guns, which provided sustained fire while riflemen maneuvered for assault. A Japanese infantry squad consisted of 13 men. A squad leader, 4 riflemen, a 3-man light machine gun team, and a 4-man grenadier team with a Type 89 knee mortar. The machine gun was the base of fire, the rifleman the maneuver element, and the knee mortar provided indirect fire support. This organization had proven devastatingly effective against Chinese forces, who often lacked modern automatic weapons and cohesive defensive doctrine. It had swept through Malaya and the Philippines, overwhelming British and American colonial forces who seemed unprepared for the speed and aggression of Japanese tactics. Night infiltration, aggressive patrolling, and the willingness to accept casualties in closing to assault range had brought victory after victory. The Japanese military had studied their potential adversaries carefully, or so they believed. Intelligence reports suggested that American forces, particularly the Marines, were equipped with outdated World War I surplus equipment. The Americans were soft, products of a materialistic society that lacked the warrior tradition and spiritual strength of Japan. They relied on their industrial capacity rather than fighting spirit, on comfort rather than endurance. Colonel Kiyonao Ichiki, whose detachment would soon face annihilation at the Tenaru River, had received detailed intelligence briefings before landing on Guadalcanal. His staff assured him that American automatic weapons consisted mainly of water-cooled machine guns, requiring crews and fixed positions. The M1917 Browning machine gun, while effective, was heavy, cumbersome, and required a team of men to operate. It needed water for cooling, ammunition bearers, and could not be rapidly displaced. These weapons could be suppressed by knee mortar fire, flanked by infiltrating infantry, or simply bypassed in night operations. Once Japanese infantry closed to assault range, American machine gun crews would be helpless against the bayonet charge. The plan was tactically sound, according to everything the Japanese knew about infantry combat. What Ichiki's intelligence staff couldn't know, was that Marine rifle squads deployed with M1918A2 Browning Automatic Rifles, weapons that would deliver devastating firepower at ranges Japanese doctrine never anticipated. Each Marine rifle squad, consisting of 13 men like their Japanese counterparts, included at least one bar, with many squads fielding 2 or even 3 of these revolutionary weapons. The bar was not a machine gun in the traditional sense. It was an automatic rifle, operable by a single man, requiring no water cooling, no fixed mounting, no crew. It could deliver accurate automatic fire from any position a rifleman could assume, could be displaced as quickly as any rifle, and could maintain its rate of fire as long as loaded magazines were available. Private First Class Kenji Yamamoto, of the 124th Infantry Regiment, would never forget his first encounter with Marine bar fire in the humid darkness of October 1942. He had been a soldier for 3 years, had fought in China, had seen combat. He thought he understood warfare. The events of that night would shatter every assumption he held about infantry combat. Yamamoto's platoon had been moving through the jungle for hours, following paths identified by earlier reconnaissance. The Marines were somewhere ahead, defending their airfield. The plan was simple and had worked countless times before: approach under cover of darkness, infiltrate close to enemy positions, then launch a coordinated assault at dawn. Speed, aggression, and warrior spirit would carry them through the brief moment of crisis when they crossed open ground. His lieutenant, a young officer fresh from the military academy, had gathered the squad leaders for a final briefing. Yamamoto, as assistant squad leader, stood nearby to relay orders. The lieutenant was explaining the assault plan, his sword gleaming dully in the filtered moonlight, when the jungle exploded. The sound hit them first, a sustained hammering unlike any weapon in Yamamoto's experience. Not the slow, measured beat of a heavy machine gun, but a rapid, continuous roar that seemed to come from directly ahead. Then the tracers arrived, streams of red light that turned the darkness into a deadly light show. Yamamoto watched in horror as his lieutenant's body jerked and danced, multiple rounds striking him in rapid succession. The officer's words cut off mid-sentence, replaced by a gasping wheeze as he collapsed. The hammering continued while the squad dove for whatever cover they could find. Trees, depressions in the ground, anything to escape the storm of lead. The fire wasn't coming from a fixed position. As Yamamoto pressed himself behind a fallen log, he could hear multiple weapons firing from different points along the marine line. The bursts were controlled, disciplined, but devastatingly effective. Each time one weapon paused, presumably to reload, another took up the fire. There were no gaps, no moments of respite when attacking infantry could rush forward. Sergeant Tanaka, a veteran of 5 years' combat in China, tried to organize a response. He screamed for the machine gun team to set up and return fire, but the 3-man crew was dead, cut down in the initial burst. The knee mortar team tried to deploy, but automatic fire sought them out the moment they moved. The gunner took multiple hits and fell across his weapon. 600 meters, Yamamoto heard Tanaka estimate. They're engaging us at 600 meters. It was impossible. Effective rifle combat occurred at 300 meters or less. Machine guns could reach further, but they were crew-served weapons with limited fields of fire. How could the Americans deliver such accurate, sustained fire at twice normal combat range? The Marines responsible for this devastating fire were positioned in carefully prepared foxholes 600 yards away. Each bar gunner had cleared his field of fire during daylight, memorizing terrain features and establishing range markers. When Japanese movement was detected, they opened fire with the same methodical precision they had practiced on the rifle range at Paris Island or Camp Pendleton. The M1918A2 Browning Automatic Rifle was perfectly suited to this kind of defensive fire. With the bipod deployed and the weapon properly supported, a trained gunner could deliver accurate fire out to 800 yards or more. The .30-06 cartridge maintained lethal velocity well beyond 1,000 yards, and the weapon's design allowed for precise control even during automatic fire. Marine training emphasized fire discipline and ammunition conservation. Bar gunners learned to fire in short bursts, 3 to 5 rounds, unless targets were massed. They learned to walk their fire across a target area, adjusting by observing tracer impacts. Most importantly, they learned that their weapon's psychological effect was often as valuable as its physical destructiveness. Yamamoto's platoon remained pinned for over an hour. Every attempt at movement drew instant fire. The Marines had turned the jungle into a killing field, where traditional infantry tactics were worse than useless. They were suicidal. When the order finally came to withdraw, less than half the platoon was able to comply. The rest lay dead or wounded in the tropical darkness, victims of a weapon they hadn't known existed. The M1918A2 Browning Automatic Rifle represented a revolution in infantry firepower, though its origins dated back to the final year of World War I. Designed by John Moses Browning, the weapon embodied American industrial philosophy, robust, reliable, and capable of delivering overwhelming firepower at the squad level. The bar was a gas-operated, air-cooled automatic rifle, weighing approximately 20 pounds when loaded. Unlike water-cooled machine guns that required crews and fixed positions, the BAR could be operated by a single Marine and employed from any position a rifleman could assume. Its fixed barrel eliminated the complexity of barrel changes, while its operating mechanism could function reliably in the worst conditions the Pacific could offer. The weapon fired the same .30-06 cartridge used in the M1903 Springfield and M1 Garand rifles, but from a 24-inch barrel that maximized velocity and accuracy. Muzzle velocity reached 2,800 feet per second, maintaining lethal effectiveness beyond 1,000 yards. The cartridge's ballistics were well understood by Marine marksmen, allowing BAR gunners to apply their rifle marksmanship principles to automatic fire. The M1918A2 variant used by Marines in World War II incorporated several improvements over the original design. A rate reducer allowed selection between two rates of automatic fire, a slow rate of approximately 350 rounds per minute and a fast rate of 550 rounds per minute. The slower rate improved accuracy and ammunition conservation, while the faster rate provided maximum firepower when needed. A folding bipod attached near the muzzle provided stable support for prone and supported positions. The bipod legs could be adjusted for height and featured spiked feet that gripped soft ground effectively. When folded, the bipod added minimal bulk and could be deployed in seconds. This seemingly simple addition transformed the BAR from a heavy automatic rifle into a light support weapon capable of delivering accurate sustained fire. The shoulder stock incorporated a hinged butt plate that helped control recoil during automatic fire. Combined with a straight-line stock design that directed recoil forces directly backward, this allowed trained gunners to maintain sight picture even during sustained bursts. A carrying handle on the barrel allowed for quick displacement, critical when Japanese knee mortars sought out automatic weapons positions. Construction quality reflected American manufacturing excellence. Receivers were machined from solid steel forgings to precise tolerances. Operating parts were heat-treated for durability and chrome-plated to resist corrosion. The bore and chamber featured chrome lining, essential for maintaining accuracy and preventing corrosion in the humid Pacific environment. Each bar came with 12 20-round magazines, though combat loadouts often included more. The magazines featured dual feed positions that presented cartridges alternately from left and right columns, ensuring reliable feeding even when damaged. Spring pressure was carefully calibrated to function whether the magazine held 1 round or 20. The manual of arms for the BAR emphasized speed and efficiency. Marines learned to carry the weapon at port arms or slung across the body, ready for instant action. Magazine changes became automatic through endless repetition. Weak hand to magazine release, strong hand to fresh magazine, seat magazine firmly, release bolt if necessary, resume firing. Experienced gunners could change magazines in under 3 seconds without losing sight picture. Maintenance in Pacific conditions required constant attention. Salt spray, coral sand, and jungle humidity attacked metal surfaces relentlessly. Bar gunners learned to detail strip their weapons daily, cleaning every component and applying light oil to operating surfaces. The weapon's robust design tolerated significant abuse, but Marines took pride in maintaining their BARs in perfect condition. Ammunition supply represented a critical consideration. A bar could empty its 20-round magazine in less than 3 seconds at the fast rate. Marine doctrine emphasized controlled fire and ammunition conservation, but intense firefights still consumed prodigious quantities of ammunition. Bar gunners typically carried 12 to 16 loaded magazines, while other squad members carried additional ammunition. The psychological impact of the BAR proved as significant as its physical effectiveness. The weapon's distinctive sound, a rapid hammering easily distinguished from both American rifles and Japanese weapons, announced American firepower superiority. Japanese soldiers quickly learned that the appearance of BAR tracers meant death for anyone caught in the open. The 3-day battle for Tarawa in November 1943 demonstrated how Marine Corps tactics had evolved around the bar's capabilities. The tiny coral atoll of Betio, barely 2 miles long and half a mile wide, had been transformed by Rear Admiral Keiji Shibasaki's garrison into one of the most formidable defensive positions in the Pacific. The Japanese had learned from Guadalcanal. Instead of relying on banzai charges and night infiltration, They constructed interlocking defensive positions designed to survive naval bombardment and exact maximum casualties from attacking forces. Concrete bunkers with walls 4 feet thick sheltered machine guns and anti-tank weapons. Coconut log emplacements covered every approach. The reef surrounding the island would force landing craft to discharge Marines hundreds of yards from shore, creating a killing field where Japanese weapons could methodically destroy the assault force. Shibasaki was confident. His 4,500 elite Special Naval Landing Force troops occupied positions that seemed impregnable. He boasted that 1 million Americans couldn't take Tarawa in 100 years. His defensive scheme represented the culmination of Japanese tactical adaptation to American firepower. If they couldn't match it in the open, they would force the Americans to come to them through carefully prepared kill zones. The initial Marine assault on November 20, 1943, seemed to validate Shibasaki's confidence. Landing craft grounded on the reef 500 yards from shore, forcing Marines to wade through chest-deep water under murderous fire. Japanese machine guns, pre-registered on the approaches, sent streams of bullets skipping across the water's surface. Mortars dropped among the struggling Marines with deadly accuracy. It seemed the assault would fail before reaching the beach, but the Marines had evolved their own tactics. Bar gunners, their weapons wrapped in waterproof bags until the last moment, provided the critical edge. As Marines entered the water, bar teams established overwatch positions on the reef, using disabled landing craft and coral heads for cover. Despite the salt water, despite the coral sand, the BARS functioned. Private First Class William Dean, a bar gunner with the 2nd Battalion, 2nd Marines, described the wade to shore as the longest 500 yards of his life. Japanese machine gun fire churned the water around him, claiming Marines with every burst. But Dean and other bar gunners began engaging Japanese positions, even while chest deep in water. "I braced against a coral head," Dean recalled, "unwrapped my BAR, and started putting bursts into the firing slits I could see. The bipod was useless in the water, but I could still deliver aimed fire. Every time a Japanese gun opened up, 2 or 3 of us would concentrate on it. We might not knock it out, but we could make the gunner keep his head down." This was revolutionary. Traditional military doctrine held that troops under fire in the open, especially in water, were helpless until reaching cover. The BAR changed this equation. Marines could deliver suppressive fire even while wading, forcing Japanese gunners to choose between accuracy and survival. As Marines reached the beach, BAR tactics evolved in real time. The seawall providing minimal cover from Japanese positions became a firing line where BAR gunners engaged bunkers at 400 to 600 yard ranges. While riflemen and demolition teams prepared for assault, automatic riflemen systematically suppressed Japanese positions. Corporal John Smith's bar team developed a technique that became standard. One Marine spotted targets and fed magazines while Smith engaged. They learned that Japanese firing slits, designed to protect against horizontal fire, were vulnerable to plunging fire at longer ranges. By firing from the prone position behind the seawall, Smith could arc rounds into bunker openings at ranges where Japanese gunners couldn't effectively respond. "We'd put burst after burst into those slits," Smith remembered. "Maybe we didn't hit anyone, but we kept their heads down." That gave our demolition guys time to get close with satchel charges. The bar was the key. Without it, those bunkers would have murdered our assault teams. The multi-story Japanese command bunker presented a particular challenge. Its reinforced concrete walls shrugged off naval gunfire, and interlocking fields of fire from multiple levels made direct assault suicidal. Marine commanders committed multiple BAR teams to suppress the position while engineers worked forward with explosives. For over an hour, a dozen BARs maintained continuous fire on the bunker's openings. The 20-round magazines emptied quickly, but Marine logistics had learned from earlier battles. Ammunition parties braved sniper fire to keep the automatic riflemen supplied. When one BAR overheated or malfunctioned, another immediately took up the slack. Lieutenant Alexander Bonnyman's famous assault on the bunker succeeded largely because BAR teams kept Japanese defenders suppressed until the last moment. As Bonnyman led his team up the bunker's sandy slope, automatic riflemen shifted fire just meters ahead of the advancing Marines. The precision required, maintaining suppressive fire without hitting friendly forces, demonstrated the weapon's controllability and the gunner's skill. Inside the bunker, Japanese defenders found themselves in an impossible position. Every attempt to man firing positions drew instant automatic fire. The concrete that protected them also trapped them, turning the bunker into a death trap when Marines finally breached the entrances with flamethrowers and demolition charges. Captain Kenji Nakamoto of the 7th Sasebo Special Naval Landing Force provided one of the few surviving Japanese accounts of facing bar fire at Tarawa. His position in a reinforced coconut log bunker seemed impregnable until Marine automatic rifles found the range. The American automatic weapons were unlike anything we had faced, Nakamoto wrote in his post-war memoir. They fired continuously, accurately, at ranges we thought impossible for such weapons. Our Type 92 machine gun could not suppress them. Every time we tried to return fire, multiple automatic weapons would concentrate on our position. The logs splintered, sand filled the air, and we could only cower as the enemy infantry approached under this terrible fire. Nakamoto described Marines advancing through chest-deep water with automatic rifles firing continuously from the hip, defying every principle of marksmanship, yet maintaining effective suppression. The salt water that should have rendered weapons inoperable seemed to have no effect. Even when wading, American automatic riflemen could engage targets at ranges exceeding 400 yards. We had been taught that troops in the open, especially in water, were helpless targets, Nakamoto continued. But these Marines turned the sea itself into a firing position. Their automatic weapons never ceased. When one paused, another immediately continued. We could not aim properly, could not coordinate our defense. The battle was lost the moment they entered the water with those terrible rifles. The 3 days of fighting on Tarawa cost the Marines over 3,000 casualties, but Japanese losses were nearly total. Only 17 Japanese soldiers survived from the 4,500-man garrison. The bar had proven its worth in the most difficult conditions imaginable, amphibious assault against fortified positions. Marine tactics built around automatic rifle firepower had evolved to crack the toughest defensive positions the Japanese could construct. The story of Marine bar superiority in the Pacific cannot be separated from American industrial mobilization. While Japanese soldiers died under BAR fire on distant islands, American factories produced these weapons in numbers that defied Japanese comprehension. The production statistics alone tell a story of industrial might that Japan could never match. By December 1941, American manufacturers had already produced over 50,000 bars, most seeing service in training establishments or held in reserve stocks. The Marine Corps had begun receiving the improved M1918A2 variant in 1940, with production accelerating as war approached. But Pearl Harbor transformed production from a steady flow to a tsunami of weapons. The primary manufacturers, Winchester, Marlin, and Colt, possessed decades of experience in precision firearms manufacture. Their factories in Connecticut represented the apex of American industrial capability, with skilled workers operating specialized machinery in vast production halls. But even these established manufacturers couldn't meet wartime demand alone. The story of IBM's entry into BAR production exemplifies American industrial adaptation. International Business Machines, known for typewriters and calculating machines, received contracts to produce BARS in 1942. Critics questioned whether a business machine company could manufacture weapons requiring thousandths of an inch tolerances. IBM's response was to apply the same precision that made their typewriters reliable to creating instruments of war. IBM's Poughkeepsie, New York, facility retooled with remarkable speed. Engineers who had designed typewriter mechanisms applied their expertise to automatic rifle production. The company's emphasis on precision manufacture and quality control translated directly to weapons production. Within months, IBM produced BARs matched or exceeded the quality of those from traditional arms manufacturers. The precision required was extraordinary. The bar's operating mechanism depended on exact tolerances between moving parts. Too tight, and the weapon would malfunction in field conditions. Too loose, and accuracy suffered while parts wore prematurely. Each component required specialized machinery and skilled operators to achieve consistent quality. Heat treatment of critical components demanded particular expertise. The operating rod, bolt, and receiver required specific hardness levels to withstand tens of thousands of rounds without failure. Too hard, and parts became brittle. Too soft, and they deformed under stress. American metallurgy, refined through decades of industrial development, achieved consistency that Japanese manufacturers couldn't approach. Chrome plating technology represented another American advantage. The bar's bore, chamber, and operating components featured chrome plating that resisted corrosion and wear. This process required specialized equipment and expertise that few nations possessed. Japanese weapons, lacking such treatment, suffered rapid degradation in Pacific conditions. Quality control systems ensured consistency across manufacturers. Every BR underwent proof testing with high-pressure cartridges to verify safety. Test firing confirmed proper function across the weapon's rate of fire range. Interchangeability checks ensured parts from different manufacturers functioned together perfectly. Rejected weapons returned for rework rather than reaching combat units with defects. The numbers achieved stagger comprehension. By war's end, American manufacturers had produced over 350,000 bars. Monthly production peaked at over 10,000 weapons, more than Japan's total automatic weapon production for entire years. These weren't hastily assembled weapons of marginal quality, but precision instruments maintaining consistency whether produced by Winchester's experienced gunsmiths or IBM's retrained typewriter technicians. Supporting infrastructure matched weapon production. Ammunition manufacturers produced billions of .30-06 cartridges to feed these hungry weapons. Magazine production required specialized stamping equipment and precise spring manufacture. Spare parts flowed through supply chains reaching from Connecticut factories to Pacific atolls. The contrast with Japanese production was stark. Japan's industrial base, though modernized through tremendous effort, lacked depth and breadth. The Nagoya arsenal and other facilities producing automatic weapons operated with worn machinery and inconsistent materials. Skilled workers, never numerous, were conscripted for military service. Quality suffered as production pressures increased. Japanese weapons reflected these limitations. The Type 96 and Type 99 light machine guns, though adequate designs, suffered from manufacturing inconsistencies. Parts supposedly interchangeable often required hand fitting. Heat treatment varied between batches, causing premature wear or brittle failures. The lack of chrome plating meant rapid bore erosion in tropical conditions. Lieutenant Colonel Masao Ishikawa, a Japanese ordnance officer captured on Saipan, provided detailed testimony about these disparities. He had examined captured BARs and marveled at their quality. Every surface showed precision machining. Parts interchanged without adjustment. The weapons functioned after immersion in seawater that would have rendered Japanese weapons useless. "We knew the Americans had industrial superiority," Ishikawa testified, but examining their weapons revealed the true gap. Our best craftsmen, working carefully, might match the quality of a single American weapon, but they produced thousands to our dozens, each maintaining standards we could achieve only occasionally. Their ordinary production surpassed our finest efforts. The human dimension of production proved equally significant. American workers, many of them women entering industrial employment for the first time, took pride in producing weapons for Marines fighting in the Pacific. Quality control inspectors rejected substandard work, knowing that Marines' lives depended on their vigilance. Factory walls displayed letters from combat units praising weapon reliability. Rosie the Riveter became an icon, but thousands of unnamed workers machining bar receivers and assembling trigger groups contributed equally to victory. They worked shifts around the clock, maintaining quality despite production pressures. Their precision and dedication meant that Marines on distant islands could trust their weapons absolutely. Japanese production, conversely, reflected a society unprepared for industrial warfare. Cottage industries supplemented arsenal production with predictable quality variations. Raw material shortages forced substitution of inferior alloys. Worn machinery, impossible to replace under wartime conditions, produced parts increasingly out of specification. By 1944, Japanese soldiers often carried weapons that malfunctioned regularly. Springs lost tension, operating parts failed, and accuracy degraded rapidly. Meanwhile, Marines employed BARS that had fired thousands of rounds yet maintained original performance. The production war was as decisive as any island battle. Beyond physical destruction, the BAR inflicted devastating psychological damage on Japanese forces. The weapon's distinctive sound, a rapid, sustained hammering easily distinguished from any other firearm, became synonymous with American firepower superiority and Japanese vulnerability. Veterans of Pacific combat could identify a BAR's report instantly, and for Japanese soldiers, that sound meant death. Sergeant Major Kenji Watanabe, who survived 5 island campaigns before capture on Okinawa, described the psychological impact in detail during post-war interrogations. The American automatic rifle had a sound that created fear, he explained. Not the slow tock-tock-tock of a Type 92 machine gun, but a rapid tearing sound, like canvas ripping. When you heard it, you knew death was coming at ranges where we couldn't respond. The fear wasn't irrational. Japanese tactical doctrine emphasized closing to decisive range through aggressive movement, but the bar made movement lethal at distances exceeding 600 yards. Watanabe described watching entire squads cut down attempting to advance across open ground, automatic rifle fire tracking them with mechanical precision. In China, we could accept casualties while closing distance, Watanabe continued. A machine gun might claim some men, but others would get through. Against Marines, this was impossible. They had automatic rifles everywhere, not just 1 or 2, but dozens. The moment you moved, multiple weapons engaged. You couldn't suppress them all, couldn't flank them all. Movement meant death. Night operations, a cornerstone of Japanese tactics, lost effectiveness against BAR-equipped Marines. Tracer ammunition loaded every 5th round turned darkness into a lethal light show. Interlocking fields of fire created barriers no amount of stealth could penetrate. Japanese infiltrators found themselves illuminated and destroyed by weapons that seemed to see in the dark. Private Saburo Yamashita wrote in his diary before the final battle on Iwo Jima, "The Americans have a demon weapon that never stops firing. In daylight, it kills at distances our rifles cannot reach. At night, its red tracers seek us out like angry spirits. We cannot advance, cannot retreat, can only wait for death. The sound haunts my dreams. That terrible hammering that means another squad is dying." The psychological effect extended beyond individual soldiers to unit cohesion and tactical planning. Japanese commanders found their subordinates increasingly reluctant to execute offensive operations. Orders for night attacks met subtle resistance as soldiers who had survived previous encounters understood the futility. Unit morale, built on traditions of victory and warrior superiority, crumbled under the reality of technological inferiority. Captain Hiroshi Yamazaki, intelligence officer for the 31st Army, reported to his superiors that American automatic weapons were destroying the offensive spirit of Japanese infantry. "Our soldiers no longer believe in the power of the bayonet charge," he wrote. "They have seen too many comrades fall to automatic weapons at ranges where cold steel is useless. The enemy's material superiority has created a moral superiority that undermines our fundamental tactics." Marine psychological warfare units recognized and exploited this fear. Loudspeakers broadcast recordings of BAR fire into Japanese positions, sometimes accompanied by messages highlighting American material superiority. The psychological operations may have been crude by modern standards, but they reinforced what every Japanese soldier already knew. They faced an enemy with overwhelming firepower. The impact on Japanese military culture proved profound. The Imperial Army's emphasis on spiritual power over material strength had defined Japanese military thought since the Meiji Restoration. Yamato Damashi, the Japanese spirit, was supposed to overcome any material disadvantage. The Bar challenged this fundamental belief system. Colonel Masaharu Homma, in a secret report to Imperial General Headquarters, warned that American automatic weapons were undermining the Army's spiritual foundation. "Our soldiers are taught that superior spirit defeats superior numbers or weapons," he wrote. "But when they face American automatic rifles, spirit alone brings only death." The survivors question everything they've been taught. This weapon doesn't just kill bodies, it kills belief. Marine units learned to exploit this psychological advantage. Bar gunners fired demonstration bursts before attacks, reminding Japanese defenders what awaited them. The sound alone often convinced isolated Japanese positions to withdraw rather than face certain destruction. Marine intelligence reported increasing instances of Japanese units abandoning strong positions after brief encounters with BAR fire. The weapon's reliability added to its psychological impact. Japanese soldiers expected American weapons to malfunction in harsh conditions. Tropical humidity, coral sand, salt spray should have rendered precision machinery useless. Instead, BARS continued functioning when Japanese weapons failed. This seemingly supernatural reliability reinforced beliefs about American material invincibility. Lieutenant Takeshi Nakamura, captured on Guam, expressed this bewilderment. "Our Type 96 machine gun required constant maintenance and still jammed frequently. American automatic rifles fired thousands of rounds without stopping. They functioned after being dragged through mud, soaked in seawater, clogged with sand. It seemed like magic, like the weapons themselves were protected by American spirits." As the Marine Corps advanced through the Central Pacific in 1944, BAR employment reached new levels of tactical sophistication. The battles for Saipan, Tinian, and Guam demonstrated how thoroughly automatic rifle firepower had been integrated into Marine combat doctrine. These campaigns also revealed Japanese attempts to adapt and their ultimate failure to counter American firepower superiority. Saipan, assaulted on June 15, 1944, presented new challenges. The island's terrain, a mixture of cane fields, rough coral ridges, and urban areas, required flexible tactics. Japanese defenders under Lieutenant General Yoshitsugu Saito had studied previous battles and attempted to counter Marine firepower through defense in depth and limiting exposure to long-range automatic weapons. But Marine BAR employment had evolved as well. Automatic riflemen no longer simply provided suppressive fire for maneuver elements. They had become precision weapons specialists capable of engaging point targets at extended ranges. On Saipan's ridges, BAR gunners engaged Japanese observers in caves at 800 yards, walking bursts across cave openings with methodical precision. Staff Sergeant Mitchell Barnes, a BAR section leader with 2nd Battalion, 6th Marines, pioneered techniques for precision automatic rifle fire. "We learned to read terrain like snipers," Barnes explained. "Every fold, every shadow might hide an enemy position. The BAR gave us reach. We could engage targets that riflemen couldn't touch, but we had to be smart about it." Barnes trained his gunners to work in pairs, one observing with binoculars while the other engaged. They developed range cards for their sectors, memorizing distances to prominent terrain features. When Japanese movement was spotted, they could engage immediately at predetermined ranges. This precision fire proved devastating against Japanese artillery observers who needed to expose themselves to direct fire. The cane fields of Saipan presented unique challenges. Traditional tactics called for infantry to advance through the tall cane while support weapons provided overwatch. But Japanese defenders had registered their weapons on paths through the fields, turning them into death traps. Marine commanders adapted by using BAR teams to literally cut paths through the cane with automatic fire. "We'd set up online and just hose down the cane in front of us," recalled Private First Class Tony Rodriguez. 20-round magazines, walking fire left to right, cutting the cane like a giant scythe. Any Japanese hiding in there had two choices: run or die. Usually they ran, and that's when our riflemen got them. Urban combat in Garapan, Saipan's main town, showcased the BAR's versatility. Japanese defenders fortified buildings and created interlocking fields of fire along streets. Marine automatic riflemen learned to engage through walls, using the BAR's penetration power to kill defenders without exposing themselves to return fire. They shot through floors to clear upper stories, through ceilings to suppress defenders above. Fire and movement tactics enabled by BAR suppression allowed advances that seemed tactically suicidal. Automatic riflemen could pin Japanese defenders while maneuver elements crossed open areas that would normally be impassable. The psychological impact was such that Japanese soldiers often abandoned positions rather than face the concentrated automatic fire that preceded every Marine assault. On Tinian, attacked on July 24, 1944, Japanese Commander Colonel Kiyoshi Ogata attempted new defensive tactics. Instead of beach defenses that naval gunfire would destroy, he positioned forces inland, hoping to counterattack after Marines landed. This plan required his forces to maneuver under American fire, a fatal miscalculation given Marine automatic weapons. When Ogata launched his counterattack on the first night, Marine bar gunners turned it into a massacre. Interlocking fields of fire channeled Japanese forces into kill zones. Tracer ammunition revealed attack routes, allowing supporting arms to engage. The bar's sustained fire capability meant no lulls that attacking infantry could exploit. Dawn revealed hundreds of Japanese dead, their attack shattered by automatic rifle fire. The battle for Guam, beginning July 21, 1944, faced Japanese forces that had occupied the island since 1941. They had constructed elaborate defenses and knew the terrain intimately. But familiarity couldn't overcome firepower disparity. Marine automatic riflemen systematically reduced Japanese positions through a combination of long-range precision fire and close-range devastating volume. Sergeant William Crawford's BAR team developed a technique for clearing Japanese bunkers that became standard procedure. While riflemen provided security, Crawford's gunner placed precise bursts through firing apertures at 400 to 500 yards. This suppression allowed flamethrower teams to approach. At the critical moment, BAR fire shifted to secondary apertures, preventing Japanese defenders from engaging the assault team. The coordination required split-second timing, demonstrating the weapon's controllability. The Japanese response revealed their desperation. General Takeshi Takashina, commanding on Guam, issued orders forbidding daylight movement except in emergencies. Japanese patrols operated only at night, and even then avoided areas dominated by Marine automatic weapons. Static defense replaced maneuver warfare, a fatal adaptation that surrendered initiative to the Americans. Captain Susumu Ito, intelligence officer on Guam, documented the transformation in Japanese tactics. The American automatic rifles forced us underground. Traditional offensive tactics became impossible. We could only defend fixed positions, knowing the enemy would systematically destroy us. The warrior tradition of attack and movement died under American firepower. We became moles, hiding from the terrible sun of their weapons. The battle for Iwo Jima in February 1945 represented the ultimate test of Marine Corps tactics built around automatic rifle firepower. Lieutenant General Tadamichi Kuribayashi, commanding the Japanese garrison, had studied every previous Pacific battle. He understood that traditional tactics meant annihilation under American firepower. His response would create the most formidable defensive position Marines had yet encountered. Kuribayashi forbade the wasteful banzai charges that had characterized earlier battles. Instead, his 21,000 men disappeared underground into an elaborate tunnel system connecting mutually supporting positions. Every yard of Iwo Jima's 8 square miles was registered for indirect fire. Camouflaged positions provided interlocking fields of fire while minimizing exposure to American weapons. If the bar had made surface warfare untenable, Kuribayashi would fight underground. "I will not repeat the errors of our predecessors," Kuribayashi wrote to his wife. "The Americans have overwhelming material superiority. Their automatic weapons make traditional tactics suicidal. We will fight from underground, bleeding them for every meter, making them pay such a price that they will reconsider invading our homeland." The initial Marine landing on February 19, 1945, seemed to vindicate Kuribayashi's strategy. Japanese forces held fire as Marines crossed the beaches, waiting until assault forces were fully committed before opening devastating fire from concealed positions. Mount Suribachi's honeycombed defenses commanded the entire landing area. Every Marine movement drew fire from multiple positions, but Marine automatic riflemen had evolved their own tactics. BAR teams immediately began systematic suppression of identified Japanese positions. While individual bunkers were nearly impervious to small arms, continuous automatic fire prevented defenders from employing their weapons effectively. The volume of fire was extraordinary. Some bar gunners fired over 2,000 rounds in the first day alone. Corporal Tony Stein, posthumously awarded the Medal of Honor, exemplified the aggressive BAR employment that characterized Iwo Jima. Stein had modified his weapon with an improved stock and bipod configuration, creating what he called a stinger. On D-Day, he made 8 trips to the beach for ammunition, each time returning to pour devastating fire into Japanese positions. His one-man assault enabled his company's advance while inspiring other automatic riflemen. "Stein showed us what the BAR could do," remembered Private First Class George Colburn. "He'd charge forward, firing from the hip, pinning down a whole Japanese bunker. While they kept their heads down, our demolition guys moved in. He turned that bar into a personal artillery piece." The systematic reduction of Mount Suribachi demonstrated evolved combined arms tactics. Marine automatic riflemen engaged every identified aperture, while naval gunfire and airstrikes hammered larger positions. The continuous BAR fire prevented Japanese observers from directing their own artillery effectively. When assault teams moved forward, automatic rifles shifted fire mere meters ahead of advancing Marines. The famous flag raising on Suribachi's summit was possible only because automatic rifle fire had suppressed Japanese positions during the final assault. As Marines climbed the volcanic slopes, BAR teams maintained such intense fire that surviving defenders couldn't man their weapons. The photograph that became iconic showed victory, but behind it lay thousands of rounds of automatic rifle ammunition expended to make that moment possible. Northern Iwo Jima presented even greater challenges. Kuribayashi's main defensive belt utilized terrain that seemed designed to defeat American firepower. Ridges, ravines, and rocky outcroppings provided cover while limiting fields of fire. Japanese positions were mutually supporting. Attacking one drew fire from several others. Traditional suppressive fire seemed ineffective against defenders protected by volcanic rock. Marine automatic riflemen adapted again. They learned that Japanese positions, while protected from direct fire, were vulnerable to ricochets. By firing at rock faces above and beside apertures, they could bounce rounds into positions. White phosphorus tracers helped gauge ricochet angles. It was indirect fire at the squad level, requiring exceptional marksmanship and ammunition expenditure. Technical Sergeant John Basilone, already a Medal of Honor recipient from Guadalcanal, was killed on Iwo Jima while leading a machine gun section. But his earlier writings on automatic weapons employment influenced Marine tactics throughout the battle. Basilone had emphasized that automatic weapons were not just suppressive tools, but precision instruments when properly employed. "A bar in the hands of a trained Marine is like a scalpel," Basilone wrote. "You don't just spray bullets hoping to hit something. You cut apart enemy positions systematically. Every burst has a purpose. Suppress this position while flanking that one. Shift fire at exactly the right moment. Make the enemy fear not just dying, but the certainty that our firepower will find them wherever they hide." The tunnel systems of Iwo Jima required new adaptations. Bar gunners learned to fire extended bursts into cave openings, the muzzle blast and ricocheting bullets having psychological effects even when direct hits were impossible. They coordinated with flamethrower teams, providing suppressive fire until the critical moment when flame weapons could be employed. Private First Class Franklin Sigler's actions exemplified this coordination. When his unit encountered a complex of mutually supporting positions, Sigler directed his BAR team to engage specific apertures in sequence. As Japanese defenders shifted to meet each threat, assault teams advanced incrementally. Sigler personally carried his BAR forward, placing precise fire that allowed demolition teams to approach. His tactical innovations, repeated across the battlefield, enabled the grinding advance through Kuribayashi's defenses. Japanese accounts reveal the effectiveness of these tactics. Major Yoshitaka Hori, Kuribayashi's senior staff officer, wrote, "The American automatic weapons never ceased. Day and night, their terrible hammering continued. Our soldiers could not rest, could not aim properly, could not coordinate defenses. The psychological strain was unbearable. Men broke down not from wounds, but from the constant sound of those weapons seeking them out." As the battle progressed, ammunition expenditure reached unprecedented levels. Some Marine battalions fired more small arms ammunition in single days than entire regiments had used in earlier campaigns. The majority was bar ammunition, 20-round magazines consumed at rates that strained even American logistics. But the expenditure was justified by results. Japanese positions that might have required costly direct assault were reduced by automatic rifle fire. The final Japanese pocket in northern Iwo Jima held out for weeks against everything Marines could deliver. Kuribayashi's last messages to Tokyo emphasized that American material superiority, particularly automatic weapons, made further resistance impossible. His final order, to inflict maximum casualties while dying honorably, reflected acceptance that Japanese tactical doctrine had no answer to American firepower. When organized resistance ended on March 26, 1945, nearly the entire Japanese garrison was dead. Marine casualties exceeded 26,000, validating Kuribayashi's defensive strategy to some degree. But the battle also demonstrated that no defensive position, however elaborate, could withstand the systematic application of American firepower centered on the squad automatic rifle. The invasion of Okinawa on April 1, 1945, represented the culmination of Marine Corps tactical development in the Pacific War. The lessons of 3 years' combat had been distilled into doctrine that maximized automatic rifle effectiveness. Facing them was Lieutenant General Mitsuru Ushijima's 32nd Army, which had studied every previous battle and prepared the most sophisticated defense yet encountered. Ushijima, like Kuribayashi, rejected banzai tactics in favor of attrition warfare. His 77,000 troops occupied the southern portion of Okinawa, utilizing terrain that channeled attackers into kill zones covered by registered artillery and mortars. The Shuri Line, anchored on ancient castles and modern fortifications, represented defensive warfare at its apex. If American firepower was overwhelming, Ushijima would force them to pay for every meter with blood. But marine automatic rifle tactics had evolved to meet this challenge. The initial landing faced minimal opposition as Ushijima conserved his forces, but marine units immediately began establishing firing positions dominating likely enemy locations. BAR teams created range cards covering their sectors, establishing reference points for instant engagement. This preparation proved valuable when Japanese forces finally revealed themselves. The battle for Kakazu Ridge in early April demonstrated mature BAR employment. Japanese defenders occupied reverse slope positions, invisible to direct fire support. Traditional tactics would require infantry to crest the ridge and engage at close range, exactly what defenders wanted. Instead, marine automatic riflemen established positions where they could engage by firing over the crest, using high-angle fire to reach reverse slope positions. "We turned those BARS into pocket mortars," explained Gunnery Sergeant Robert Moore. "Calculate the range, elevate the weapon, and walk bursts down the reverse slope. We couldn't see impacts, but forward observers could adjust our fire. The Japanese thought they were safe on the reverse slope. They weren't." This indirect fire technique required exceptional ammunition expenditure. Some positions fired over 5,000 rounds daily. But logistics had adapted to support such consumption. Ammunition parties operated continuously, hauling BAR magazines forward despite Japanese artillery and sniper fire. The automatic rifle had become so central to marine tactics that keeping them supplied took precedence over almost everything else. The assault on Sugarloaf Hill in mid-May revealed both Japanese adaptation and its ultimate futility. The position, actually a complex of 3 mutually supporting hills, had been designed specifically to defeat American combined arms tactics. Artillery observers could call down devastating barrages on any approach. Interlocking machine gun fire covered all dead ground. The position seemed impregnable. Marine automatic riflemen responded with tactics that would have been impossible earlier in the war. BAR teams infiltrated forward under darkness, establishing hide positions within range of Japanese strongpoints. At dawn, they opened sudden, devastating fire from unexpected directions. While defenders reacted to these threats, assault elements attacked from other directions. The coordination required exceptional small unit leadership and communications, demonstrating how far marine tactics had evolved. Private First Class Luther Skaggs earned the Medal of Honor for BAR employment during the Sugarloaf Battle. When his squad was pinned by Japanese fire, Skaggs advanced alone with his automatic rifle, systematically engaging enemy positions. He fired over 1,200 rounds during the action, displacing between bursts to avoid retaliation. His one-man war enabled his company to advance, demonstrating individual mastery of automatic rifle tactics. Skaggs turned that BAR into a complete weapons system, his platoon sergeant recalled. He'd fire a burst, roll to a new position, fire again. The Japanese couldn't pin him down, couldn't coordinate against him. He understood fields of fire, defilade, grazing fire, all the technical stuff, but also had the guts to apply it under fire. The battle for Shuri Castle, ancient seat of Okinawan kings, became a BAR gunners' war. The castle's stone walls provided excellent protection, while Japanese defenders had turned every building into a strong point. Marine automatic riflemen learned to fire through multiple walls, using the BAR's penetration to engage defenders in seeming safety. They coordinated with tank crews, marking targets with tracer fire for 75mm engagement. Urban combat in Naha, Okinawa's capital, required further adaptation. Japanese defenders used the city's concrete buildings effectively, creating strong points resistant to small arms. BAR gunners learned to engage through windows at acute angles, bouncing rounds off interior walls to clear rooms. They fired extended bursts through floors and ceilings, making vertical envelopment possible without exposing assault teams. The psychological warfare aspect reached new sophistication on Okinawa. Marine loudspeaker teams broadcast not just recordings of BAR fire, but specific messages about automatic weapon superiority. Surrendering Japanese soldiers were interrogated about weapons effects, their testimony broadcast back to encourage further surrenders. The material superiority had become so overwhelming that some Japanese units simply collapsed psychologically. Corporal Donald Cook's actions exemplified mature BAR employment. When his platoon encountered a complex cave position, Cook analyzed the tactical problem like a chess master. He positioned his assistant gunner to observe while he engaged specific apertures in sequence, forcing defenders to shift positions predictably. When Japanese troops moved between firing positions, riflemen picked them off. The entire action resembled a training exercise in its precision. Cave warfare on Okinawa pushed BAR employment to extremes. Marines learned that extended bursts into cave openings created pressure waves that disabled defenders even without direct hits. White phosphorus tracers ignited flammable materials inside caves. The psychological effect of continuous automatic fire echoing in confined spaces broke defenders' will. Some caves were cleared by automatic rifle fire alone, defenders surrendering rather than endure further bombardment. The final battle for the Kian Peninsula in June demonstrated the cumulative effect of 3 years' tactical evolution. Marine units operated with mechanical precision, automatic rifles providing the framework around which all other weapons functioned. Japanese positions that would have required battalion attacks in 1942 were reduced by reinforced squads built around multiple bars. General Ushijima's final messages to Tokyo acknowledged defeat through material inferiority. The enemy's automatic weapons make traditional tactics impossible. Each soldier possesses firepower exceeding our squads. Their coordination of these weapons with supporting arms creates a killing machine we cannot match. Spirit alone stands helpless before such material superiority. Behind the tactical evolution and technical details lay human experiences that defined the Pacific War. Marine bar gunners and Japanese soldiers who faced them left testimonies revealing war's reality beyond abstract discussions of firepower superiority. These personal accounts illuminate how automatic rifle employment transformed combat at the most fundamental level. Private First Class Eugene Sledge, whose memoirs would become among the most famous of the Pacific War, served alongside bar gunners throughout the campaigns for Peleliu and Okinawa. His descriptions capture the weapon's impact on small unit combat. The bar men were the backbone of our fire support. When we moved, they covered us. When we were pinned down, their fire got us moving again. I remember watching our barman pour burst after burst into a Japanese position on Peleliu, the tracers streaming out in beautiful red arcs that meant death for anyone in their path. The sound was reassuring to us, terrifying to them. Sledge described the physical demands on BAR gunners. The weapon's weight, combined with ammunition load, meant automatic riflemen carried nearly twice the load of regular infantry. In tropical heat, across coral ridges and through jungle terrain, this burden was exhausting. Yet BAR gunners had to maintain alertness and accuracy despite fatigue. Our barman, a big farm boy from Alabama, would be soaked in sweat after just a few minutes of combat. The sustained firing heated the weapon until you could see heat waves rising from the barrel. He'd pause to let it cool, and you could see the strain in his eyes. But when we needed covering fire, he never hesitated. That bar spoke with authority that kept Japanese heads down and let us live another day. Lance Corporal Robert Leckie, serving with the 1st Marine Division, provided insight into the selection and training of bar gunners. Not everyone could handle the weapon effectively. Size and strength mattered, but mental attributes proved equally important. The best bar gunners combined physical capability with tactical intelligence and aggressive instincts. They picked the biggest, toughest Marines for bar men, but that wasn't enough. You needed brains too. A good bar gunner read terrain like a book, knowing instinctively where to set up, how to achieve interlocking fire with other automatic weapons. He had to think several moves ahead, like a chess player with a 20-pound automatic rifle. Leckie described one BAR gunner who exemplified these qualities. Johnson was our BAR artist, 6'2", built like a linebacker, but with an engineer's mind. He'd study our sector for hours, memorizing every fold in the ground, every possible enemy approach. When the Japanese came, he was ready. 3 to 5 round bursts, never wasting ammunition, every burst with purpose. He could make that bar talk, and what it said was, "Stay down or die." From the Japanese perspective, facing Marine BAR fire was a nightmare that shattered tactical assumptions and individual morale. Lieutenant Hiru Onoda, who would later become famous for continuing to fight until 1974, encountered marine automatic weapons on Lubang Island in the Philippines. His account reveals the shock of first contact. "We had been taught that American soldiers were soft, relying on material comfort rather than fighting spirit. The first time I experienced their automatic rifle fire, I understood how wrong we were. The bullets came like rain, accurate rain that sought out every place a man might hide. Our training emphasized aggressive movement, but movement meant death against such weapons." Onoda described watching his sergeant attempt a traditional assault. Sergeant Yamada was old army, believed in the power of the charge. He gathered 5 men and rushed the American position, screaming war cries. The automatic rifle cut them down like wheat before a scythe. Yamada made perhaps 20 meters before the bullets found him. He spun around from the impacts, his rifle flying from his hands. The others fell around him. The American weapon never paused, sweeping back and forth until nothing moved. Sergeant Yokoi Shoichi, who survived 28 years in hiding on Guam, left detailed accounts of facing Marine firepower during the 1944 battle. His testimony provides tactical detail from the receiving end. The American automatic rifles controlled the battlefield. Their range exceeded our rifles. Their volume of fire dwarfed our machine guns. We learned to recognize the sound, that rapid hammering that meant death. When you heard it, you pressed yourself into the earth and prayed to become invisible. Yokoi described the psychological impact. Days of constant automatic rifle fire broke men's minds. Some soldiers simply stopped responding, sitting in their positions with empty eyes. Others broke and ran, only to be cut down. The weapons never stopped, day or night. Even when you couldn't see Americans, their automatic rifles reminded you they were there, waiting. Marine Corporal R.V. Bergin, a rifle squad leader on Peleliu and Okinawa, provided perspective on integrating bar firepower into small unit tactics. His experiences demonstrated how automatic rifles transformed the relationship between fire and maneuver. Everything revolved around the bar. When I positioned my squad, the first consideration was where to put the automatic rifle for best fields of fire. The barman was like a queen on a chessboard, powerful but needing protection. Rifleman provided security while he delivered the firepower that made everything else possible. Bergin described a typical engagement. Japanese machine gun opens up from a coral outcropping. I get the BAR man's attention, point out the target. He shifts position slightly, braces the bipod, and starts working the gun over with short bursts. Meanwhile, I'm moving part of the squad around the flank. The bar keeps the enemy gun crew worried about living while we maneuver. By the time they realize they're being flanked, it's too late. Private Kiyoshi Yamamoto of the 2nd Battalion, 22nd Regiment, Japanese 24th Division, provided one of the most comprehensive accounts of facing marine automatic weapons on Leyte. His diary, recovered after his death, reveals the progressive demoralization. Day 1. Americans have landed. Our positions are strong. We will throw them back into the sea. Day 5. Enemy automatic weapons are terrible. Lost half my squad attempting to move forward. Their rifles fire continuously at ranges we cannot match. Day 12. Cannot move in daylight. Enemy automatic rifles sweep every open area. Lieutenant ordered night attack. Day 13, night attack failed. Enemy rifles equipped with red tracer ammunition turned darkness into death trap. Only 3 returned. Day 20, hiding in cave, no food. Enemy automatic weapons fire at cave mouth constantly. Cannot even look outside. This is not war but extermination by machines. As the Pacific War drew to its conclusion, the full implications of American automatic rifle superiority became undeniable. This was not simply a matter of one weapon system proving superior to another, but a fundamental clash between 2 approaches to warfare, one rooted in industrial mass production and technological innovation, the other in warrior tradition and spiritual determination. The statistics told only part of the story. Over 350,000 BARs produced by American industry, each one a precision instrument capable of delivering devastating firepower at the squad level. Billions of rounds of ammunition manufactured to exacting standards, an entire logistics network dedicated to ensuring every Marine automatic rifleman never lacked for loaded magazines. Behind these numbers lay a deeper truth about the nature of modern warfare. Colonel Hiromichi Yahara, senior staff officer of the Japanese 32nd Army on Okinawa, provided perhaps the most thoughtful analysis of Japan's defeat. Writing after the war, Yahara acknowledged that Japan had fundamentally misunderstood the nature of the conflict. "We believed war was a contest of wills, that Japanese spiritual superiority would overcome American material advantages. This was our fatal delusion. The Americans had industrialized warfare itself. Their automatic rifles were not just weapons, but expressions of an entire system: mass production, standardization, logistics, training. Each Marine bar gunner represented millions of man-hours of industrial effort. We sent soldiers with rifles to fight an industrial machine. The outcome was inevitable." Yahara's analysis extended beyond weapons to the societies that produced them. Japanese society, despite our modernization efforts, remained fundamentally agrarian in outlook. We could produce individual soldiers of excellent quality, but we could not mass-produce the tools of modern war. The Americans turned warfare into an industrial process. Their BAR gunners were factory workers, producing death with mechanical efficiency. Our warriors, however brave, were artisans facing an assembly line. General Kuribayashi's final letter to his wife, written in the caves of Iwo Jima, captured the human dimension of this technological mismatch. "I am sorry it is taking so long to die. The enemy's material superiority is overwhelming. Their automatic weapons make our position hopeless. My men show tremendous courage, but courage alone cannot stop bullets. I think of our son and wonder what kind of world he will inherit. Perhaps it is better that Japan learns this lesson now rather than later. We cannot defeat the machinery of modern war with spirit alone." The Marine Corps had learned its own lessons. The integration of automatic rifle firepower at the squad level had transformed small unit tactics, creating a combined arms team in miniature. Every Marine understood his role in this system. Riflemen provided security, scouts identified targets, automatic riflemen delivered suppressive fire, all coordinated by squad leaders who understood the mathematics of fire superiority. Master Gunnery Sergeant John Basilone had written before his death on Iwo Jima, "The bar isn't just a weapon, it's a philosophy. It means every Marine squad has its own base of fire, its own portable fire support. It means we don't have to wait for machine guns or mortars to get organized. We bring the firepower with us, organic to the squad." The Japanese never understood this. They still thought of automatic weapons as special assets parceled out by higher headquarters. We made them basic equipment, like a rifle or bayonet. The production statistics revealed the true nature of the Pacific War as an industrial conflict. IBM alone manufactured over 50,000 BARs, applying business machine precision to weapons production. The same company that made typewriters for American offices made automatic rifles for Marine infantry. This seamless conversion of civilian industry to military production exemplified American advantages. Meanwhile, Japanese production struggled with basic quality control. Captured documents revealed that late-war Japanese weapons suffered from metallurgical failures, inconsistent ammunition, and chronic parts shortages. While American workers maintained precision despite round-the-clock shifts, Japanese craftsmen working by hand couldn't achieve consistency even in limited production. The human cost was staggering. Tens of thousands of Japanese soldiers died under bar fire, most without ever closing to ranges where their training and courage might have mattered. Marine casualties, while significant, were fractional compared to Japanese losses. The kill ratios achieved in battles like Tarawa or Saipan seemed almost genocidal. Entire Japanese units annihilated, while Marine forces remained combat effective. Private Saburo Sakai, who survived the war to become a successful businessman, reflected on these disparities. We were not stupid. We knew Americans had more weapons, more ammunition, more of everything. But we believed Japanese spirit could overcome material disadvantage. What we didn't understand was the scale of the difference. It wasn't that they had more, it was that they had unlimited amounts. Their automatic rifles never ran out of ammunition. When one broke, they had immediate replacements. They could fire all day without worrying about supply. We counted every round, and it still wasn't enough. The psychological impact extended beyond individual battles to Japanese society itself. The myth of Japanese military invincibility, carefully cultivated since the Russo-Japanese War, died under American automatic weapons. Returning wounded soldiers spoke in hushed tones of American firepower that defied comprehension. Civilian morale, already strained by bombing and blockade, crumbled further as the reality of technological inferiority became undeniable. Lieutenant Commander Toshikazu Omai, a staff officer with the combined fleet, witnessed this demoralization firsthand. Officers returning from the island battles were changed men. They had seen their commands destroyed by American firepower. They spoke of automatic weapons that dominated battlefields, of Marines advancing behind walls of fire no courage could penetrate. These reports destroyed faith in our military leadership. How could we have been so wrong about the nature of modern war? The story of Marine bar gunners in the Pacific War transcends the specific weapon system to illuminate fundamental truths about modern industrial warfare. The M1918A2 Browning Automatic Rifle, deployed at the squad level and employed with increasing sophistication throughout the war, represented American advantages that no amount of Japanese courage or determination could overcome. From the first shocking encounters on Guadalcanal to the final cave battles on Okinawa, the BAR defined tactical possibilities and limitations. Japanese military doctrine, perfected through years of successful campaigns against less well-equipped opponents, proved fatally obsolete against automatic weapons employed by trained, aggressive Marines. The 600 to 800-yard engagement ranges that bar gunners routinely achieved created killing fields that traditional infantry tactics could not cross. But the deeper lesson lay in what the BAR represented: an entire approach to warfare based on industrial production, technological innovation, and systematic training. Every Marine automatic rifleman was backed by thousands of workers producing weapons and ammunition, by training systems that turned civilians into skilled gunners, by logistics networks that ensured ammunition supply even in the most remote Pacific islands. This was warfare as industrial process, where victory went not to the most courageous, but to the most productive. The Japanese, for all their military tradition and warrior culture, never grasped this fundamental change in warfare's nature until too late. They sent soldiers armed with spiritual determination to fight Marines armed with automatic rifles. They emphasized close combat in an age when American firepower made closing with the enemy suicidal. They believed in quality of individual warriors, when quantity of firepower determined outcomes. The testimonies of survivors from both sides reveal the human dimension of this technological mismatch. Marine veterans spoke with matter-of-fact professionalism about employing their BARS to dominate battlefields. Japanese survivors described helplessness in the face of overwhelming firepower, watching comrades fall to weapons that killed at ranges beyond comprehension or response. The gap between these experiences measured not just technological difference, but fundamentally different approaches to warfare itself. Modern military professionals studying Pacific War battles still find relevant lessons in Marine BAR employment. The integration of automatic weapons at the squad level, the emphasis on distributed firepower, the coordination of all arms around a base of suppressive fire, these principles remain valid. The specific weapons have changed, but the concept of overwhelming firepower delivered by small units continues to define American military doctrine. Perhaps the final judgment should come from those who experienced the reality of facing American automatic weapons. General Kuribayashi, in his last days on Iwo Jima, wrote words that captured the essence of Japan's defeat. "We could not build a bridge between our courage and their technology. The Americans created weapons that made traditional warfare obsolete, then mass-produced them in quantities we could not imagine. Each Marine with an automatic rifle possessed more firepower than our entire squads. This was not a war between nations, but between eras, the industrial age defeating the warrior age. We were brave, they were productive. In modern war, production wins." The Marine bar gunners of World War II proved this truth on every island from Guadalcanal to Okinawa. Armed with 20-pound automatic rifles, backed by American industrial might, they stopped Japanese advances at ranges that transformed Pacific battlefields into killing fields. The lesson was written in fire across the Pacific. In industrial warfare, courage alone stands helpless before mechanized death. The samurai sword, no matter how skillfully wielded, cannot reach across 800 yards of bar-dominated terrain. This was the ultimate reckoning of the Pacific War. Not just the defeat of Japan, but the death of an entire conception of warfare. The Marines and their Browning automatic rifles were merely the instruments of this transformation, writing the future of warfare in brass and lead across the islands of the Pacific. Japan never knew what hit them, because they were fighting the last war while Americans were creating the next one 20-round magazine at a time.